Good day, esteemed viewers. I extend a cordial invitation to all who frequent this channel to partake of the following narrative. I request that you take a moment to express your approval and indicate your intention to remain apprised of future content by clicking the like and subscribe buttons. I assure you that this is a simple yet gratifying gesture on your part, and it will undoubtedly bring me immense joy to have you as a part of my growing audience. I have been engaged in theatrical pursuits since the tender age of 14. My inaugural performance on a professional stage occurred at my educational institution. Over the years, I have cultivated my craft by enrolling in acting classes and becoming an active member of the drama club in high school. Additionally, I attended acting classes in college. At some point, I transitioned from acting in theatrical productions to designing and building sets and directing. I met my wife in the same year I began playing her. Her name was Donna Zachary. For context, my name is Mark Abbott. Donna's family relocated to the house adjacent to my family's residence. In our neighborhood, the concept of a neighborhood is a relative one. The area in which we lived was not one in which houses were situated in close proximity to one another. Our nearest neighbor was situated approximately 100 meters away. Our house was comprised of 5 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, and a guest toilet. Both families were able to maintain a comfortable standard of living. Over time, the families began to communicate and develop a close relationship. In fact, I believe that my father and Donna's mother were so close that they relied on each other for support. After approximately 2 years, it was determined that Donna and I would wed when the appropriate time had elapsed. I was not opposed to this decision, as Donna was quite attractive. Over the course of the following years, she and I developed a friendship that was nearly as close as that between Donna and my father. In fact, we shared the same level of intimacy as my father and Donna's mother did. This occurred on the night of our prom. Was this a novel approach? It was not, but as it turned out, it was an effective one. It transpired that over the years, she shared the same penchant for theater that I did. We participated in several productions together at school and college. Indeed, one of our favorite locations for sexual intercourse was one of the 3 theaters at Penn State University, given that we resided in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Penn State University appeared to be a logical choice. We dated and we maintained a loving relationship throughout our college years. We both enjoyed college and engaged in sexual experimentation with other individuals, sharing these experiences with each other. There was no jealousy when we engaged in sexual intercourse with others. She even had sexual encounters with women who, for some reason, vowed to terminate their romantic relationships while in college. I believe they may have belonged to a kind of LGBT group, lesbians, before graduation. I was not envious of these encounters, but I was eager for her to share the details. When she did, it was during our final year of college. We began to settle down, walk together frequently, and come to the conclusion that our parents were correct in their assertion that we should wed that evening. When I made an official proposal, we made a commitment to each other that from that point forward, and forevermore, we would be exclusively devoted to one another. The arrangement functioned effectively for 2 decades. However, it ultimately proved unsustainable. Neither Donna nor I ever required financial assistance. As previously stated, both our families enjoyed a certain degree of affluence. Her father inherited a sizable fortune, and I have never observed him engaged in gainful employment, apart from restoring vintage automobiles for his own enjoyment. In contrast, my father had worked extremely hard to achieve his financial status. He was the proprietor of numerous businesses, including car parts stores, car washes, and fast food restaurants. All of these ventures generated income. However, the fast food restaurants were particularly lucrative, as they were highly profitable. Both individuals gained their considerable fortunes through different means. However, they had one thing in common: they never relied on verbal agreements or handshake deals. Almost everything they did was accompanied by a signature. When I was 16 years old, my parents gave me a car. It was, in fact, a loan, and I was required to sign a document stating that the car belonged to my parents and that they could take it away for any of the reasons listed on the form that I had to sign. The last reason on the list was the undersigned. I acknowledged that the registered owner of the vehicle, my father, has the prerogative to revoke my right to use the vehicle at any time should he determine that I have forfeited my eligibility for free and unlimited use of the vehicle. I have never been deprived of my right to use a vehicle without restriction. This was a mutually beneficial arrangement, and my sole obligation was to. I was required to maintain a clean criminal record, which I did. I was provided with 3 vehicles under this contract until I graduated from college. At that point, my father gave me the vehicle I was using at the time. All 3 vehicles were Ford pickups. During my senior year in high school, I planned to attend a prom in New York City. I was interested in attending the event to see professional Broadway productions, but I lacked the financial resources to do so. Consequently, I requested a loan from my father. My father provided me with a loan, stipulating that I would repay it by working in one of his enterprises. He reserved the right to determine the enterprise and store. The contract specified that loan payments would be made directly from my check and that they should not exceed 50% of my net income. For the aforementioned billing period, both Donna's and my father's insisted on signing contracts for nearly all of their endeavors. Consequently, the prenuptial agreement did not come as a surprise to either of us. The essence of the prenuptial agreement was that, in the event of a divorce for any reason other than adultery, both parties would retain their respective assets and share them equally. In the event of infidelity, the individual who violated the marriage covenant would be divested of all marital property and assets acquired during the marriage. Conversely, the offended party would retain all property and assets brought into the marriage. This stipulation applied to both parties in our marriage. Having lost our tempers and sworn eternal fidelity to each other, we proceeded to sign the document without encountering any significant difficulties. This was precisely how it was written and how it was done. Fast-forwarding 20 years, Donna's father and mother were still alive. He was still engaged in the reconstruction of old cars, while her mother was pursuing her own interests. My parents, on the other hand, perished when the aircraft they were traveling on fell from an altitude of 13. At the time of their disappearance, I was in the process of liquidating their property. I had begun working with my father after graduating from college and had assumed management of the fast food restaurants, which had grown to 8 in number. Approximately 2 years after the wedding, Donna and I had twins. Our marriage was truly outstanding until that fateful day. Throughout our union, we both maintained a profound affinity for the theater. We frequently journeyed to New York to witness the vibrant spectacle of Broadway performances. Our twins, Samantha, Sammy, and Samuel, had reached the age of 17 and a half, and they were intimately acquainted with Times Square, having resided in the vicinity since the tender age of 3. They took acting, dancing, and singing lessons and demonstrated proficiency in all 3 disciplines. They performed on stage in numerous local plays and school productions. Donna and I had already ceased our participation in acting, but we remained actively involved in the theatrical community. Our area boasted 3 local theaters and 1 organization that brought professional actors from New York and Chicago to participate in their productions. The professional group augmented its ranks with non-professional actors from 3 local groups. We had the opportunity to work with professionals on several occasions. Despite having ceased acting, Donna and I remained active in the theater community. I have been directing some of our in recent years. I have found participation in theatrical productions to be more enjoyable than playing. I served as president of the board of one of the theater groups, while I was a member of the board of another. The bylaws of all 3 groups stated that family members were not permitted to join their councils simultaneously. The band I was president of was my favorite. Furthermore, I dedicated a considerable amount of time to the decoration of the premises and the maintenance of the buildings and grounds. In recent months, we have encountered challenges with local adolescents gaining unauthorized access to the theater building. While they did not engage in vandalism, they did steal several items of props. Notably, they also stole our lawn mower. The local police force was forthcoming in informing us that such minor offenses are rarely investigated unless the perpetrator is identified. It is uncommon for crimes to be investigated unless the perpetrator is known. The police force in question lacked the resources to devote time to minor offenses. The board of directors therefore decided to take the initiative and assist the police in apprehending the perpetrator. To this end, 6 audio and video cameras with motion sensors were purchased and installed in and around the building. Donna requested my assistance in this matter. I was tasked with the installation of the cameras. I informed her of my intention to complete the task at the earliest convenience. She requested that I provide her with a timeline so that she could relay the information to the board of directors. It was Wednesday. My lawyer and I had recently concluded our business at the courthouse. My parents' inheritance had been finalized, and I was now a wealthy individual. I would venture to state that I was financially secure, in good health, and relatively young, at the age of 43. 1 year the man in question was of advanced age, with a spouse who exhibited affectionate behavior and 2 children who could be described as admirable. I was returning home but decided to stop by the theater and install cameras. I installed 2 of them near the theater itself. One was aimed at the front door and the other at the stage door. I also installed 1 camera inside, aimed at the cash register. Our workshop was a separate building with 1 entrance. I installed 1 aimed at the door and the other inside, directed at the workshop where our tools were located. The last one was in the warehouse where our stage furniture and props were stored. I connected them all to the computer in the theater office. In case the computer is stolen, I added a link to I had brought my laptop with me due to a scheduled visit with legal counsel. Any movement within or around the theater or workshop triggered an alarm on both the computer in the theater and on my laptop. I then proceeded to return home, intending to inform Donna about the system later that evening. However, the news of the final decision regarding my parents' inheritance took precedence. The entire evening was dedicated to discussing the potential purchase of a new house, as well as a property in Vail, which would allow them to engage in skiing activities, a pastime they had never previously enjoyed. Additionally, the group engaged in discourse surrounding donations to luxury motor home world travel, as well as travel-related topics such as motor vehicles. By the time bedtime arrived, the participants were visibly fatigued, and the discussion about the theater cameras had been temporarily set aside. This pattern continued until Friday, 2 days later, shortly after 7 o'clock. At approximately 10 p.m., an alert was triggered on my laptop. Upon investigation, it was determined that the motion detector in the theater had been activated. The camera outside the workshop revealed the presence of 2 young men attempting to gain access to the building. While the incident was initially reported to the authorities, the decision was made to obtain a more comprehensive video recording for later identification purposes and to monitor their activities within the building. The individuals remained in the vicinity for approximately 10 minutes, seemingly without any urgency. During this time, an audio recording captured their conversation. It became evident that they had previously visited the premises and were now hoping to find something of value to steal. They observed that all the instruments were engraved with the theater's name, rendering them worthless. They proceeded to the refrigerator and consumed a couple of soft drinks. At that moment, I observed them jump up and look at the door. Without uttering a word, they ran to the prop warehouse and concealed themselves behind a china cabinet that had been provided by an unidentified individual. I then observed Donna, my 20-year-old. The individual in question is a 20-year-old female. My wife, who I love dearly, entered the room. She was pushed by John Xavier Neal, a member of the theater board of directors. Neal is a portly man who often plays the role of a womanizer in our plays. He is a worthless individual in the theater, and we refer to the practice of casting as such. I am eager to engage in sexual intercourse with my wife, but I am too preoccupied with other matters. He responded, "It seems as though an eternity has passed." She took his hand and led him into the prop warehouse. He was torn between attempting to lift her skirt to gain access to her posterior and unbuttoning his shirt with one hand while she held the other. A week can seem like an eternity when one is constantly. She reassured him that it was okay to remain on edge. "I'll take care of your boner," she said. By this time, they were already near one of the sofas in the prop warehouse. It appeared that they had been there before, as he went straight to the closet where the sheets and blankets were, while she began to undress. She instructed him to approach her, and he hastily spread a sheet on a nearby couch before guiding her onto it. I observed as the individual in question forcibly removed her underwear, a fact that was also audible to the 2 observers. One of the young men, situated behind a china cabinet, vocalized his dismay, while Donna inquired about the source of the sound. The question was posed as to what had transpired. It was stated that there was no one present in the room. However, this assertion was met with skepticism by one of the uninvited guests. The men then proceeded to enter the room. The ensuing altercation was described as a show by one of the participants. The question was then posed as to whether the two individuals should engage in sexual intercourse with each other. In response, one of the participants shouted, "Wrong mommy, go to hell." She then began to dress herself. "Listen, we have two options, you can be used immediately, or these records will be disseminated widely online." "Are you listening?" he replied. They both displayed their mobile phones. "Oh my God, you wouldn't dare," they said. "How dare we, unless we're using you in the same way your lover used you. John, I implore you to take action. What should I do?" John Xavier Neal inquired of the individual in question, who remained silent. One of the men replied, "He won't stop." The second man added, "He's so afraid that he's urinating on himself. However, there is a possibility that she enjoys being urinated on. Listen up, gentlemen. I must insist that I cannot afford to be involved in this situation. My wife will be extremely displeased if I am discovered to be associated with this individual. It is evident that we are using you because you are unable to afford to be caught. Please," Donna implored, as both men began to undress. However, her pleas were in vain. The initial assailant disengaged from the interaction. Donna was prompted to assume a standing position, which she did with some reluctance. The individual then assumed a recumbent position on the sofa. Donna regarded him with a keen interest, as though eager to engage in further interaction. However, she was advised to proceed with caution. Dwayne then proceeded to join the other individual on the sofa. Donna was observed to be breathing rapidly, indicating a heightened state of arousal. She was being used by two strangers simultaneously. At the same time, they reached their limit and decided to participate in the act. I felt physically ill when I first observed her and the man enter the building. My immediate response was to contact the police. I was concerned for her safety, but as the situation unfolded, I found myself overcome by curiosity. By the time Dwayne and his associate joined the proceedings, I was so overcome with arousal that I was no longer concerned about the consequences for Donna. I experienced a sudden and intense revulsion. I sat and considered my options, but I was unable to reach the bathroom in time to prevent vomiting in the hallway. I was kneeling there, looking at my vomit, smelling it, and after a few minutes, I vomited once more. I then proceeded to wash myself and, upon returning to the toilet, discovered that I was unable to reach it. I returned to the computer and attempted to turn it off, but I was too unwell to do so. I vomited a total of 5 times, and the experience was so intense that I cannot accurately describe it as mere vomiting. On the initial 3 occasions, there was nothing remaining in my stomach to expel. Consequently, on the final 2 occasions, I vomited dry air. I remained seated for a period of 2 hours, attempting to determine the optimal course of action. Initially, I considered evicting her from the residence. However, I ultimately decided to pardon her, given that she had remained faithful to me for 2 decades. We might as well return to the topic of evicting her from the house. What will become of the twins? I decided to forgive her, but an hour later, I was still uncertain about my course of action when I heard the garage door open and she came in with a smile on her face. "Hi honey," she said, "how was your day? Kiss me." I was uncertain whether I had truly detected a scent on her breath or if it was merely a product of my imagination. In that moment, I made a decision: you have 1 hour to collect your belongings and vacate this residence. What are you referring to? I will not be present when you return, and I do not wish to engage in any further communication. I was disinclined to see you or talk to you again, given your deceitful actions. I allowed you 1 hour to depart the premises, but I remained for 2 hours. Upon returning home, I entered the bedroom and discovered that some of your belongings had been removed. I sat on the bed and wept for approximately 15 minutes. I then looked up and observed the twins standing in the doorway. What did you do? To Mom. Sammy inquired, is this a matter between me and her? Mom replied, you have asked her to leave the house. Is that true? This is not a topic for discussion. We have a right to know. Father, kindly exit the room. This is also my mother's room, and it is no longer a private space. Please leave us alone. We will not pursue this further. We will speak with our mother. We wish to express our disapproval of your actions. We believe you have behaved in a reprehensible manner. We also have some concerns about your character. We have now reached the conclusion that we no longer wish to have any further contact with you. Consequently, we have no further interest in any communication with you and will not be responding to any further statements you may make. You are therefore to be regarded as completely excluded from our lives. I would like to interject at this point and state that I am not prepared to accept such a discourteous and disrespectful manner from you. I am the daughter who discovered the truth about your identity, and I no longer wish to have any contact with you. She proceeded to her room, and you, Sam, are to be condemned. The actions you took against my mother were the epitome of disgraceful and unimaginable behavior. I do not wish to see you again. I proceeded to his room. I was seated downstairs when they arrived. They each had a suitcase and a few items on hangers as they headed for the door. Are you certain that you wish to proceed with this course of action, as Sam suggested? I proceeded upstairs, and they departed. It took me approximately 30 seconds to determine my next course of action. I had identified the first location that the three of them would likely visit. I accessed the internet, located the business in question, and contacted them. I then contacted the bank. 2 hours later, 2 vehicles arrived at Donna's parents' residence. One of the drivers proceeded to ring. The doorbell rang. Sammy opened the door and stated, "We are from Keystone Recovery, and we are here to retrieve the 2 Mustangs that are parked in front of the house. The registered owner of the cars has requested that we return them, and he has also requested that we provide copies of the contracts to Samantha and Samuel Abbott." The initial driver returned to his vehicle, and the trio departed. Sam, Donna, and her mother were standing and examining the contract the twins had signed on their 16th birthday when I had provided them with the vehicles. A few minutes later, my phone rang. It was Donna. I had previously stated that I was no longer interested in communicating with her. I terminated the call, and it rang again. It was Sammy. As might have been anticipated, she was the primary conversationalist regarding the twins. She inquired about the possibility of a larger vehicle. I observed a facet of my children with which I was previously unfamiliar. Do not ascribe blame to me. I am merely assisting you in achieving your desired outcome. What, precisely, are you referring to? 2 hours ago, you stated that you and your brother no longer wish to have any further contact with me. Therefore, I am facilitating your departure from this situation by taking possession of my vehicles. This will facilitate your departure from me. I had presumed that you would encounter fewer difficulties. Instead of expressing gratitude, you have chosen to label me as an "oh by the way," and proceeded to cancel my credit cards. I am at a loss to comprehend your rationale. The telephone connection was abruptly terminated. I have come to recognize a previously unacknowledged aspect of my children's personalities. It is a less appealing aspect, but it is nevertheless a part of them. It is likely that they would hold similar views about me. It is evident that I have initiated divorce proceedings. Donna attempted to communicate with me on a few occasions, but I terminated the conversations. Neither she nor the twins entered the residence to retrieve their belongings. I proceeded to the theater once more to erase Donna's video from her gathering. I did not delete the copy on my laptop. After that, I did not revisit the theater. 3 weeks later, we convened a meeting. In attendance were Donna, her legal counsel, our legal counsel, and myself. I was taken aback to see the twins there. I did not desire their presence, and since they were not of legal age, I could have prevented it. I was able to prevent it, but after further reflection, I decided it was time for the meeting to commence. The lawyer representing Donna stated that she did not desire a divorce and that the justification for the divorce, namely adultery, was not accurate. I could discern from the expressions on the twins' faces that Donna had not informed them of the reasons for the divorce. The lawyer then interjected, requesting that the proceedings focus on the matter at hand. He proceeded to play a video recording captured by cameras in the theater. Donna, visibly distressed, began screaming and turned to look at me. I remained silent, and she continued, "How did you do that?" I did not respond. I informed her that I had never wanted. I informed her that I would not engage in further discussion with her. The twins then departed the room, looking at each other. I informed her lawyer that if my client signed the requisite documents within the next 10 minutes, she would be permitted to collect the remaining items, including the jewelry that had been left in the safe. The house would be accessible from 5 p.m. to 7. It was 00 in the evening, but according to the prenuptial agreement, she was not entitled to receive any further compensation. Furthermore, it is evident that the video in question can be accepted as evidence in a court of law, as both parties are aware that it was filmed in a public place, within the confines of the theater, and that the individuals involved had no reasonable expectation of privacy. In terms of privacy, I was referring to a private residence. I rose from my seat and departed the conference room of the office complex, proceeding towards the elevator. The twins were standing there, awaiting my departure. I raised my hand to halt their further discourse. Henceforth, we have no further information to divulge and everything to keep to ourselves. You have stated that you are uninterested in our affairs and that you wish to be removed from our lives. This is a sentiment that you expressed a few weeks ago, without having a full understanding of the circumstances. As I have come to realize, your words apply not only to me, but also to you. I chose to proceed down the stairs instead of waiting for the elevator. Furthermore, I must address your use of the term, Dad. Given the aforementioned circumstances, it would be prudent for you to inquire about your biological father. It is implausible that I am the father, as I have always encouraged my children to consider all perspectives. The residence will be accessible today from 5 p.m. onwards. From 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., you may collect the remaining items from the house. Any items remaining after 7 p.m. will be donated to charity. You may wish to bring a vehicle and assistance. However, do not take any belongings belonging to your mother's romantic partners. I proceeded downstairs and exited the building I had just vacated. I had just been contacted by my lawyer, so I stopped at the side of the road to take the call. I had signed the necessary documents, and my marriage was officially over. I entered my vehicle and wept that evening at 5 p.m. At 5 p.m., the twins arrived. I observed them viewing the "For Sale" sign on the lawn. I permitted them entry, and as was customary, Sammy attempted to speak on behalf of both of them. I raised my hand to halt her, instructing her to simply collect her belongings and depart. She began to speak again, and I silenced her with a single word: "You will leave here with nothing." I then proceeded to my office and closed the door. I heard them leave approximately 20 minutes later. Shortly thereafter, the doorbell rang, and I opened the door to find my father-in-law. Law was standing there, Donna was standing behind him. "May I come in?" "Of course," he replied. "Donna, go get your stuff. I'll talk to Mark." She went upstairs. "How are you?" he asked. "Not very well," she replied. "And yours isn't either." The twins told us what happened at the lawyer's office. They were shocked, especially when you advised them to find out who their biological father was. I was just standing there. We didn't know about Donna. When she returned home today, her mother kicked her out. The twins can stay if they want, but Donna has to. I must insist that you leave before tomorrow. I continued to stand in silence. The twins regret the way they treated you. Perhaps you should forgive them and give them another chance. I do not believe that my relationship with them is any of your concern, but I know you are merely attempting to be of assistance. They were prepared to abandon me before they were fully aware of the circumstances. There was no forgiveness, although there was nothing to forgive. They treated me with contempt. I will not be able to easily forget or forgive this now. If you will excuse me, I must attend to my duties. Say hello to them for me. To Mom. I have always held you in high regard and respected your decisions. I hope you are aware that I returned to my office after the incident. I heard them leave. 5 years have passed. I did not see Donna or the twins again. I sold my house, packed my truck, and left Pennsylvania for the South. I woke up in Key West, Florida. It is important to note that I did not require the money. In fact, I was never going to work again. On my first day in Key West, I pretended to be a tourist. I walked along one of the central streets and almost walked past a small public theater. I paused to survey the premises. The front entrance was secured, so I circumvented it and approached the rear. Several individuals were engaged in activities within the warehouse. I introduced myself and initiated a dialogue. Before long, I had procured a cordless drill and was already contributing to the construction of the scenery. As with the majority of those involved in the community theater, they were volunteers whose other occupations allowed them the flexibility to participate in the project. At approximately noon, the majority of the volunteers began to depart. The individual in charge inquired as to my availability the following day. We agreed to prepare coffee the following morning. I arrived at 8 a.m. with a dozen donuts. I have remained involved in the organization over the past 5 years, during which time I purchased a residence within walking distance of the theater. I have served on the board of directors, participated in numerous productions, and directed 3 productions on that particular day. I was engaged in the construction of the set for the next play. I was putting on a performance when I heard this. "Dad, is that you?" I did not require visual confirmation, I was certain of the identity of the speaker. I placed the doctor's prescription down and turned to face her. "How did you find me?" I inquired. More importantly, why were you walking down the street? "I had seen a poster advertising your play and your name." "What do you want, Samantha? Can we talk for a while?" There was a long pause. I was standing. "Come on, tell me, Sam. We treated you like we didn't have the right to do that, and you didn't deserve it. Not a day has passed in the last 5 years that we haven't regretted it. We've been trying to find you for a year. Grandpa helped us hire a private investigator, and for the first 3 months, we attempted to maintain surveillance of your activities. We were aware of your whereabouts in Charleston, but then we lost contact with you. My father, I am truly remorseful for what has transpired. I miss you dearly and am eager to resume our relationship. It was in Charleston that I resolved to cease using credit cards and instead utilize only cash. I have not utilized a credit card since that time. Furthermore, I would like to clarify that you are our father. We conducted a DNA test. How did you manage to do so without my DNA? We requested that she perform the test. As far as Sam and I recall, this narrative details how your mother saved all of your teeth when they fell out and placed them in a small box. Your teeth were on one side, and Sam and I were on the other. We have examined them. It is evident that, regardless of one's sentiments towards the matter, one is, by virtue of biological inheritance, a child of the aforementioned individual. However, of greater consequence is the fact that one is, in fact, a child of this person. At that moment, we heard the whistle of the boat Key West, which is a significant port of call for cruise ships. I was compelled to depart. I must inquire as to whether you are on this ship. I and my fraternity friends elected to embark on a cruise as a graduation gift. I graduated. I am pleased to inform you that I graduated from Penn State last month. I was subsequently invited by the aforementioned individual to accompany her on a portion of her journey. I proceeded to close the door of the theater, after which we proceeded on foot towards the harbor. It is possible that you may not wish to hear this, but Sam and I have infrequent contact with our mother. We do, however, occasionally visit her at her grandparents' residence. They are not pleased with her presence, but they do not prevent her from staying there. A child should remain hungry or homeless. A child, she became pregnant by one of the men she was engaging in sexual intercourse with that day. I shrugged my shoulders, indicating that I was indifferent to the situation. I briefly considered that she was too old to become pregnant, but this did not seem to be the case. You have a granddaughter. Sam married last year and they had a baby 2 months ago. Her name is Mary Elizabeth. The child was named in your honor. I have photographs of her. She produced 2 photographs and showed them to me, but I declined to view them. Do you wish to see the photographs? Neither you nor Sam are aware of the extent of my distress when you informed me that you wished for my removal. I invested a great deal of emotional energy into my family, only to have it all destroyed by your mother's actions. This occurred a long time ago, and it is evident that she has been unfaithful for a considerable period. However, you and Sam appeared to be able to easily dismiss my feelings, leaving me perplexed. Now, you have returned, you have expressed remorse and desire for reconciliation. However, I am uncertain if I possess the emotional fortitude to do so. What if I inadvertently offend you again? Will you reciprocate? I am unsure if I can or will endure this process again. It is similar with his daughter. If I view her photograph and begin to feel. Given his emotional attachment to her, he could easily sever their relationship on a whim. There is no reason for me to expose myself to this risk. All we can do is express our sincerest apologies and implore you not to reject us but to give us a chance to make amends. By this time, we had reached the entrance to the cruise terminal and stopped. I have to go, she touched my arm, as if she wanted to hug me. I turned away, and she looked at me, her eyes tearful, as she turned and walked through the gate. I watched her leave, and she turned back to me, saying, "We love you, Daddy." I probably said it 1,000 times on the way to the theater, but I came close to saying it. She was incorrect in asserting that it had been 5 years, 4 months, and 18 days since I had last contacted her. In fact, the time that has elapsed is longer than that. I am currently residing in this location, and I am uncertain as to the appropriate course of action. Should I depart and seek alternative accommodations? This is my domicile, and I am reluctant to do so. I will contact you tomorrow. As soon as Sammy was able to resume her journey, she promptly reactivated her credit cards. She then proceeded to contact Sam, inquiring about his experience. "Have you experienced any seasickness?" she asked. "No," Sam replied. "Do you know who I have spent the last half hour with?" "I do not," Sam responded. "I have spent the last half hour with my father," she said. There was a long silence. "Are you there?" she asked. "I am here," Sam replied. "Is he okay?" she inquired. "He is," Sam said. She expressed continued bitterness. "Did you convey our sentiments of regret?" "I did so on multiple occasions. I also informed him about Mary and attempted to show her a photograph, but he refused to look at her." She proceeded to explain to Sam what their father was like. "I was guided by the belief that he would be upset." "How did he react?" "I was not sure. From my perspective, he seemed indifferent. I do not fault him for that. I must take my leave. We are preparing to set sail. I will see you in a few days. I love you." "I love you too." 5 weeks after returning home, Sammy received a phone call. "Hello. This is Detective Brian from the Key West, Florida Police Department. I'm trying to locate Samantha Abbott." "To locate Samantha Abbott, I am Samantha Abbott." "Miss Abbott, are you aware of Mark Abbott, who resides in Key West?" "That is my father's name." "What is the nature of the emergency, Miss Abbott?" "Your father has suffered a stroke and is currently hospitalized. Could you please elaborate on the severity of his condition?" "I will convey your concerns to his physician. It is not appropriate to discuss medical information. However, I recommend that you visit as soon as possible." "Thank you, Detective. When you arrive, kindly request that the hospital staff contact me. I appreciate your assistance." 12 hours later, he and Sam were conversing with the attending physician and nurse outside his father's room. The patient's medical history includes a cerebrovascular accident, CVA, that occurred 2 weeks ago. This was followed by a performance of a play that the patient directed. After the performance, the patient and the cast and crew celebrated in a local pub. The patient has been in a coma since being admitted to the hospital. Therefore, it is not possible to assess the extent of the damage. However, it is known that there is some physical damage. There is also a possibility of neurological damage, but this cannot be confirmed because the patient is unable to communicate. From a medical point of view, there is no reason for the patient to be in a coma. However, it is important to note that he has not been alone since being admitted to the hospital. He has always had someone with him. The theater was with him, and now there is someone there. Could you please explain why we have not been informed for so long? I am not sure, but it seems that no one was aware of your existence until recently. Thank you, Doctor. Would you kindly let us know if we can see him now? Of course, Nurse Johnston and I will be with you. They entered. The young man was seated and reading aloud from Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, Mark's preferred literary work. He ceased reading and stood as the 4 individuals entered the room. Good day. I understand that you are Mark's children. I wish to convey that the entire city holds your father in high regard. He is a highly esteemed individual. He single-handedly saved our theater. We are fortunate to have him. Thank you, Sammy. The young man left. Sam walked over to one side of the bed. Sammy went to the other side. They reached for their father's hands. As soon as they touched Mark's, his eyes fluttered. They opened. Nurse Johnston, clutching the doctor, was gasping for breath. "Oh my God, look, doctor." She began to approach Mark. The doctor stopped her. "Leighton, just take a look," he said. Mark's eyes were completely open. He looked at Sam and then at Sammy. What happened? His speech was slow and labored. "You had a stroke had occurred 2 weeks prior, as the doctor had foreseen." He then informed the family that, as far as could be ascertained, the patient should make a full recovery. However, further tests were required, and now that the patient had regained consciousness, these could be conducted. The doctor and Nurse Johnston then departed. The patient's family inquired as to the duration of their stay. They had only just arrived. The patient's current condition was unclear. The three parties engaged in a prolonged silence, each attempting to communicate but unable to do so. Mark's condition fluctuated between consciousness and unconsciousness. The medical staff intermittently entered and exited the room, attending to their duties. Another individual from the theater was also present. After a few hours, the twins were prepared to find lodging and rest. Mark was awake. "Dad, we have to leave for a while. We need to find lodging and rest. We'll be back in the morning." The automobile keys could be used to gain access to a hotel. They comprehended this information. Sammy bent down to kiss him on the forehead as they departed. Sam patted his hand. They all smiled. In the lobby, they perused his wallet. His address was listed on his driver's license. Therefore, they took a taxi and proceeded to the destination. They utilized his keys to gain entry. After placing their suitcases in the living area, they conducted an inspection of their father's house. Sammy proceeded to the kitchen. Sam approached his desk. "Sammy, what is the matter?" He indicated the table. There were numerous photographs of the two of them on it. The photographs revealed a wealth of memories from their high school graduation, including images of Sam, who had been present to celebrate their achievement. There were also photographs from Sam's wedding, along with a few images of Mark in the maternity ward. College graduation photos were also present. It was a remarkable discovery. Despite his frequent discussions about emotional involvement, Sam had remained a constant presence in their lives. They were overwhelmed by a complex range of emotions, from joy to frustration. They decided to have drinks and explore the rest of the house. There was nothing remarkable or indicative of the presence of a woman. They proceeded to exit the residence and conduct a brief perambulation of the exterior. They observed a garage at the rear of the property. The interior of the garage contained 3 vehicles, including a relatively recent Mercedes-Benz 550S. The other 2 cars elicited a strong emotional response. 2 Mustangs were parked in the garage, one in silver and the other in yellow. That night, they spent at their father's residence. The following morning, they were in his room. Mark's condition had improved significantly. Sam was scheduled to depart later that day. He was expected to return. His speech had shown notable advancement. "Samantha, I am gratified that you could attend. I am pleased to see you both. I am sorry that I was so unfeeling. I realize now that we will make up for lost time if you allow us to do so. Samantha, we will make up for it. Let us start right now." She bent down to her father and kissed him. She spent the next for a period of 3 weeks following his discharge from the hospital. She ensured that he received continuous care. She was not required to concern herself with his well-being, as it appeared that there was always someone from the theater in the house. The young man she had seen on the first day of his admission was correct in his assumption. The city held a profound affection for her father, yet she was compelled to depart. Mark's condition had markedly improved, and she bore the burden of household responsibilities. The farewell at the airport was bittersweet, they both shed tears. He repeatedly expressed remorse for his shortcomings and vowed to rectify them. She was poised to assume control, yet her gaze lingered on her father. Eventually, she departed, and Mark left the terminal building. He nearly reached his vehicle but then turned and proceeded directly to the cash register. At what point does the next flight depart for Harrisburg, Pennsylvania?